Good afternoon, everybody. That intro was really good, so I don't have to get into my own intro. But the Resilient Rurals model is really a passion project for me. I grew up on a farm, and the best way that I can explain that connection is that that land is my soul. And so the rural and small community landscape is something that's very important to me, and this model has been a work in progress to express that. I recognize that I only have 15 minutes, so I'm gonna be pretty quick. I've had enough coffee. I think that will support that. But before I get into it, I just want to ask who is here from a small or a rural community, just to get a sense of the audience. Okay, so maybe like 40%. So this may speak more to those. So Resilient Rurals, we started as a partnership between three small communities, populations under 3,000 in Alberta's industrial heartland. The town of Bruderheim, I do a lot of work with the town of Bruderheim and many other municipalities and Indigenous communities. But if anybody doesn't know, the town of Bruderheim is about 30 kilometers outside of Edmonton on Treaty 6 territory. And so in 2018, our communities got together to build a partnership that would support us in addressing climate adaptation. Because I was finding all the work that I was doing, it was really hard to find something that fit our communities in the typical larger urban center processes for adapting to climate change. So we created a regional plan. And it was very ambitious. We had a lot of goals, but I'm really grateful we were able to access a fair bit of funding. And so we knocked a lot off our to-do list. And so the Resilient Rurals model essentially kind of pulls together our path that we took. So I'm just going to run really quickly through some examples of things that we did based on our regional plan. All of these resources are available on our website. So these are just some social media toolkits that you can download, things like summer hazards and winter hazards and community wellness. As well as we did a resource hub. One of the things that we found as we were going through our project is that it was really tough to find all the relevant resources. That in itself takes a lot of time. So we wanted to pull everything together and help other communities like us. We also developed a number of guides. I think the one that's my favorite is the Rural Assist. And that was the pilot project that we did to identify and support our vulnerable populations. But we've got some things around cooling centers and water planning. Also a Rural Ready guide, which is some mock scenarios to support our staff and our residents. One of our more recent projects was a cross-cultural food sovereignty project that we worked on. Just a quick shout out to Derek Bruno standing at the door with Subgen from Samson Cree Nation, supported us on bringing together non-Indigenous and Indigenous communities and organizations to talk about food sovereignty in our region. And we had a workshop and got to see some really incredible projects that were going on for food sovereignty. And we did a number of webinars and also developed some training. All of this is available on our website. So a number of the growing concerns that really drove us in our work and in developing this model when we spoke to a lot of other small and rural communities are things like water resource issues, as well as the food sovereignty piece. Infrastructure as well was a really big thing for a number of communities, and also that we're losing much of our populations to larger urban centers. So these were a number of drivers behind the work that we were doing. And lastly, the increasing need to partner Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities. I don't think we've done a good job being neighbors, and so it's really important to do that. And I've heard it said there was a conference participant, Indigenous participant, that had said that the potential for rural communities and Indigenous communities to partner across Canada holds some of the most potential, and I really agree with that. So a lot of the perspectives that we were seeing and hearing is that urban centers, the larger centers, often receive that first thought when it comes to climate change adaptation, that there's a lack of support from higher levels of government in terms of funding and resources, and also that there's a lack of resources that fit small and rural communities. So hence that really drove us in the development of our model, hoping to bridge some of that. So the primary purpose of the model is to support these communities in developing regional partnerships. We knew early on that as small communities, we did not have the resources and the capacity to take on some of these challenges. And so we knew that partnerships were going to be our greatest strength. And so for the model, we understand that those partnerships are going to have a diverse membership. So everything from the municipalities to the Indigenous organizations, our businesses, our nonprofits, just having everybody at the table and stepping outside of our silos. And we're hopeful that those regional partnerships will really enable capacity development and knowledge sharing, resource sharing, and collective advocacy and risk reduction. And as far as we know, unless someone else is aware of other pieces, this is the first model of its kind that's being developed. So as we were building out the model, we based a lot of it off of our own experience. So the things that we struggled with and had to develop, we wanted to share some of that guidance. And we also had a dedicated Indigenous advisor. Again, shout out to Derek Bruno. And then we also surveyed and interviewed small and rural communities across the country, and with the focus in the prairie provinces, just to get a sense of what everybody's feeling and needing. And we had a committee of subject matter experts as well. So the model is going to be officially launched in the fall. It's fairly straightforward. It walks people through the development of champions, outreach and formalizing partnerships through divisioning and action planning, with the option to partner with Indigenous neighbors. And we left that part kind of high level. We didn't want to be too prescriptive because all of those partnerships are really going to need to be led by those Indigenous partners. So we gave some general guidance around that. We also developed a number of focus streams. So things like the water resource management, infrastructure, shared capacity building, so that partners could have a little bit of guidance in these primary areas to partner and make some progress in. This is obviously too small for you to read. It's a list of tools that's in the model. Everything from agendas, checklists, those kinds of things, some templates for you to use for developing the partnerships. And when we were building it out, we had essentially two modes of thought. One of them being that we'll throw all this information onto the website and out to the provinces to see, anybody can use it and make those things available. And then the other piece was to do some facilitated workshops and services for those communities that don't have the capacity to do so. I think I made it within 15 minutes. I just wanted to say thank you so much to ClimateWest. ClimateWest has been a big supporter for us. They've provided us with resources and funding and also patience. And their team is starting to feel a little bit like family. And I think that that's really where we need to be doing this work from, is from that place of family and connection. And so just ending with that gratitude.
So thank you to the ClimateWest group for the invitation to talk to you today. And hello, everyone. So to set the stage for my talk this morning, I'd like to begin with a background on environmental inequities in Canadian cities. So as we are aware, environmental risks in Canadian cities are not distributed equally. Vulnerable populations, including low-income groups, recent immigrants, often live in areas with poorer air quality, less access to green space, and hotter summer temperatures, which all affect health. This slide shows two examples of environmental inequities in Canadian cities. First, a report from Montreal showed that 3 out of 4 low-income neighborhoods or low SES neighborhoods were characterized by heat islands compared to just 1 in 5 in higher socioeconomic status areas. And these disparities have been directly related to health outcomes. So during the 2021 heat dome that happened in the Pacific Northwest, over 400 heat-related deaths were recorded in the Greater Vancouver area. The study that you see here on the slide showed that the risk of death during this extreme heat event was 3 times higher in low socioeconomic status neighborhoods. And in recent years, environmental justice has gained recognition with new legislation aimed at addressing longstanding environmental inequities like the ones I just outlined. So in Canada, Bill C-226, which was passed last June, marks a major step forward. So this legislation requires the Minister of the Environment to develop a national strategy to advance environmental justice and to assess, prevent, and address environmental racism. So this legislation reflects a growing acknowledgement that where people live affects their exposure to environmental risks and thereby their health, and that these disparities must be addressed through policy. Data plays a critical role in turning legislative commitments into action, and by identifying where environmental inequities exist, we can turn general or broad policy goals like the ones that are found in Bill C-226 into targeted, measurable steps towards healthier and more equitable cities. And to support this work, this kind of action-oriented policy work, we need accessible, equity-focused data tools, and this is where HealthyPlan.city comes in. So HealthyPlan grew out of the Canadian Urban Environmental Health Research Consortium, or CANU, which is a CIHR, Canadian Institutes for Health Research funded initiative. We were funded by CIHR to put together a central data hub of health-relevant environmental exposure metrics, such as air pollution, heat islands, and make that data available to academic researchers and trainees across the country. So we've supported since 2016 over 400 research projects, which have led to more than 200 peer-reviewed publications. But we quickly realized that this type of data is quite useful outside of academia. So with funding from the Public Health Agency of Canada, we put together HealthyPlan.city, which really aimed to democratize the data that we had assembled under CANU and make it available to public health practitioners, to urban planners, and to community advocates in order to support more equitable, evidence-based decision-making in Canadian cities. So here's an overview of the tool. So HealthyPlan is a free web-based tool that allows users to easily map and browse 25 different demographic and environmental indicators in 129 Canadian cities. The tool allows users to explore block-by-block distribution of environmental exposures, health-relevant environmental exposures, such as air pollution, heat islands, access to different community amenities. And the tool also allows overlaying demographic data with environmental indicators to get a picture of environmental inequity in cities across Canada. And finally, the tool allows users to compare environmental inequity within similar sized cities or between similar sized cities or between neighborhoods within a given city. So the aims are really twofold, to support data-driven local public health and urban planning decision-making, and to provide data to local community groups in order to facilitate advocacy. This slide here highlights the range of data that is available through the tool. So this includes 13 environmental indicators, including the 3 that you see here in our urban climate domain, so heat, tree canopy cover, and flood susceptibility, and 13 vulnerable or equity-deserving populations that you can browse for all 129 cities included in the tool. The environmental indicators are derived from a number of different sources, including large open source geospatial databases, satellite imagery, statistical models, whereas the demographic data all come from the 2021 Canadian census. So as I mentioned, Healthy Plan, the tool helps uncover environmental inequities in Canadian cities by allowing users to overlay those demographic and environmental indicators. And with 26 different indicators, users can explore how specific populations like low-income residents or older adults are affected by their surroundings. And a key feature of the tool is what we call equity priority maps. And I'll just walk you through a bit of the methodology for developing these. So these maps identify areas where action may be most urgently needed. And it does this by ranking city blocks in 2 ways. So we look at the proportion of vulnerable populations living in a city block and the quality of environmental condition for that same block. And what we map as equity priority areas are blocks that are above the city median for the proportion of vulnerable populations and below the city median for favorable environmental conditions. So in short, these neighborhoods are where social disadvantage and urban environmental burden overlap. So this here just shows a brief example of these equity priority maps in Saskatoon. So this is the heat island map for the city of Saskatoon. This is the distribution of the proportion of older adults, which are more susceptible to extreme heat across the city, and overlaying these 2 data layers using the methodology that I just outlined gives us an equity priority map for that exposure and that population. Looking at a different population, susceptible group, in this case, low-income individuals living alone, we get a different picture of equity priority, again, using that same method. So I'll walk you through how Healthy Plan can support cities in identifying and prioritizing areas for extreme heat adaptation using city of Winnipeg as an example. So in mid-May, Winnipeg became the first Canadian city to receive a heat warning in 2025. On May 12th, temperatures soared to 35 degrees Celsius, which is 16 degrees above the seasonal norm. And this broke a 67-year-old record. And as we saw from Elaine's presentation yesterday, this is part of a general trend, what we saw this spring. Historically, Winnipeg saw about 14 days of 30 degrees plus temperatures, and by 2051, that number is expected to rise to 52 days, which is nearly 4 times the current average. And as we know, one of the most effective ways to adapt or to defend ourselves against these extreme temperatures is urban tree canopy. But Winnipeg's trees are under threat. The city is home to 200,000 urban elms, which is the largest urban elm population in North America. But since 2016, over 33,000 of these have been lost to the Dutch elm disease. Compounding this, about 40% of Winnipeg's urban forest is composed of emerald ash borer, but of ash, but the emerald ash borer is now threatened that tree species as well. In other cities where this beetle has spread, 99% of the untreated trees are lost within a decade. This tree loss goes beyond ecological concerns. They translate directly into hotter neighborhoods. So we can expect that in Winnipeg, neighborhoods that lose significant canopy they can expect surface temperatures up to 6 degrees Celsius higher, thereby compounding that urban heat island effect. So in the next few slides before I finish, I'll show you how Healthy Plan brings these intersecting risks together, and by mapping tree canopy cover and social vulnerability and their intersection. So this screen recording here shows how Healthy Plan maps tree canopy cover at the city block level in Winnipeg. Each block is color-coded, so dark green shows a high tree canopy cover, whereas orange and red shows a relatively low tree canopy cover, which are often the areas that are most affected by these extreme heat events. And as you can see in the animation here, clicking on a block gives you the actual percentage of tree canopy cover for that location. And Healthy Plan also allows users to explore distribution of demographic factors. Here we're looking at the percentage of low-income individuals in the city of Winnipeg at the block level. Each city block, again, is color-coded, blue showing a lower proportion of low-income individuals, whereas red and orange show higher proportions. As you can see, there's a clear concentration of low-income folks in the downtown core of Winnipeg. And then this last screen recording shows the equity priority map for these two factors that I just introduced. So tree canopy cover and the proportion of low-income individuals in Winnipeg. So by selecting both of these layers, the tool highlights city blocks where a higher proportion of low-income individuals live in areas that are characterized by higher average summer temperatures. And this spatial perspective helps identify neighborhoods where the combined risk of low tree canopy cover and social vulnerability are the greatest, and where adaptation measures might be most needed. So I'd like to close with a community partnership that we established with Green Communities Canada. So in this specific partnership, we are collaborating with 11 environmental NGOs across the country, providing them with this type of data, this type of mapping exercise, which can then support local community groups prioritize equity-informed greening initiatives such as tree planting, public gardens, and deep paving activities. And if you want to learn more about this, I'll be sitting somewhere with my laptop over there, so you can come talk to me. I'll be around all day. And you can also look at a peer-reviewed publication that was just up there that was published in Journal of Urban Health. And I'd like to finish by thanking our small but mighty team that makes all this work possible. Thank you.
Hey. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be coming to you after lunch when you're sleepy, and hopefully this will wake you all back up. So my name is Casey Clunas. I work for the Canadian Centre for Climate Services at Environment and Climate Change Canada. And as Liz mentioned today, I'll be speaking about climatedata.ca. So please feel free to visit climatedata.ca on your laptops if you have them, on your phones as I speak. But I do want to mention I'll be focusing today on some upgrades that we're actually making to the site. So I'll be highlighting the ways in which the new site will actually differ from the site that's currently live. Oh yes, this is important. Okay, so yeah, visit climatedata.ca. The perk of its name also being the website URL is great. It's going to be on every single slide, so just feel free to type that into your browser. And so I'm hoping you can refer back to this presentation once the new site actually launches, because there will be a few differences as you navigate the current site that's live. Okay, hit the green button. Awesome. Okay, so for anyone who isn't familiar, climatedata.ca is a climate data portal that's produced collaboratively by the country's leading climate organizations. And so that includes ClimateWest, and supported in part by the Government of Canada, specifically the Canadian Centre for Climate Services at Environment and Climate Change Canada. So the goal of this portal is to support decision makers across a broad spectrum of sectors and locations by providing the most up-to-date climate data in easy-to-use formats and visualizations. It was built to help reduce barriers so users can access authoritative data without the cost of paying a consultant to do it for you or the complexity of figuring out how to do it completely by yourself. So my colleague Elaine, who presented yesterday on climate change in the prairies, mentioned how important it is to use climate data in decision making, and specifically how historical climate is no longer a good indicator for the future. Or even the current climate. So we really need to use future projections to make the most sound decisions for adaptation in order to be resilient to future risks. So who should use climate data? Who is climatedata.ca for? So in short, everyone, anyone and everyone whose work is influenced by climate. So that's definitely everyone in this room. And often climate data is associated with things like emergency planning, infrastructure design, but it also supports work in a broad range of sectors such as agriculture, health, finance, transportation, and more. So whether you're working for a municipality and planning stormwater systems, if you're in the agriculture sector and you're looking into viable crops for the future, or you're designing heat resilient buildings, reliable climate data, reliable future projected climate data is essential for systems that are resilient to those future conditions. So jumping into some of what is going, do two things here. Jumping into the new site and what's going to be coming soon to climatedata.ca, we have been working on a major redesign to make it easier than ever to find, understand, and use high quality climate data in your work. So this version 2 or 2.0, as I might refer to it as, is expected to go live in the coming months. And I'm going to give you a brief overview of what you can expect from that. So whether or not you're a longtime user of climatedata.ca, or this is the first time you're hearing about it, the update that you're going to see will introduce some powerful improvements, and all of these improvements are actually based on direct feedback that we've heard from users of climatedata.ca. So what has improved? So this update aims to enhance the usability and the clarity without compromising the depth or the quality of the data. So some of the highlights include easier navigation. So the site menu will be simplified. The core functions are now going to be integrated into 3 main areas. So that being the map section, the download section, and the learning zone. There will be sector filters, which you'll notice are currently available on the site that's live. Those will be built into those 3 kind of core areas. So essentially everything will continue to exist just with an update to the navigation. Lower barriers for non-experts. So those of you who don't consider yourself climate scientists will still be able to navigate the site with ease. There will be some help text and tooltips throughout to help you understand what you're looking at, understand what you're downloading, and make you a lot more confident in exploring climate data. Another thing is a better download tool. So on the current site, you'll notice there's a download section and an analysis section. And so those have now, or will be rather, combined into a single tool. So hopefully reducing confusion as to where you need to go to get the data you need. A more mobile-friendly design is going to be introduced. So the platform is going to work more seamlessly on mobile devices and tablets of different screen sizes. And then finally, future-ready infrastructure. So there's a lot of updates happening in the back end, kind of behind the scenes, that's going to support faster integration of new data sets, and that will make it easier for us to add the data and change things based on evolving user needs moving forward. So now I'll just walk through some of those core areas of the site. Again, this is focused on kind of what version 2 is going to be, but a lot of this applies to the current site as well, in terms of base functionality. So one of the most significant areas of change that you'll notice, especially if you're a longtime user, is the map interface. So we've built powerful customization tools into the map, making it easier to focus on the data that's most relevant to your work. The new view will better help users walk through the specific steps, from choosing a data set to exploring projections by region, so you can make the most out of what the map has to offer. So some of the high-level steps for the map are, first and foremost, selecting the right data set. So you need to start by choosing a data set. Each data set contains one or more variables, which are specific indicators of climate conditions. So just for example, if you choose the statistically downscaled climate projections data set, you can choose from more than 40 variables, things such as hottest day, freezing degree days, growing season length, and things like that. So you'll obviously want to select the data set that has the variables of interest to you and your needs. So once you've got your data set, that's when you want to find the right variables. So it's going to be easier to find variables that suit your needs. So you can search by keyword or browse variables by sector or type, such as agriculture, for example. Once you've selected the variable, you can then further customize the map by exploring different time periods. So you can view data all the way up to the end of the century. You can also adjust that to be mid-century, again, depending on your needs. You can look at different emission scenarios. So if you want to plan for a really high emissions future, you can look at high emission scenarios. You can compare those to lower emission scenarios. You can also look at the data by different temporal frequencies, so whether it be monthly, seasonal, or annual. So then exploring the map. So you can do so by geography. You can also do so by some interactive regions. So for most of the variables on the map, you can explore the data by grid cells, which are small squares representing specific points on the map. You can do so by census subdivisions. So if you work for a municipality, this might be a helpful way to view the data. Health regions, so if you're working in public health, could be a good way to look at it, and watersheds. So if you work for a watershed authority or if you're interested in ecosystems, you might want to view the data like that. And I am running out of time here, so I'll just kind of briefly mention the last one. There's a few things that you can do in addition to looking at the data like that. If you click on a region, you'll see on the screen something like that will pop up. It'll give you a bit more detailed information. You can also view the data as a time series graph that's also interactive. And so that's available on the current site as well. Again, just a bit of update to the navigation of that. So the next one is the download tool. So again, as I mentioned, the download page is going to merge the current download and analysis tool into one singular streamlined interface. And so this tool will walk you through all of the steps. So some of them are screenshotted on the slide here. But essentially, similar to the map, you're going to start by just selecting a data set and one or more variables of interest. You're going to choose your region. And again, you can select things like those interactive regions, census subdivision, watershed. You'll define your filters. So again, the time period, emission scenarios, temporal frequencies. And then all of the results will be exported and delivered to your email. And so you can actually access it in different file formats as well. So whether that be a CSV, a NetCDF, JSON, there are lots of options. And then quickly, I'll just mention, because we combined the download and analysis tool, this new tool will have that custom threshold analysis embedded into it. So there are certain things that you can customize and download. So things like heat wave analysis, for example. So you can customize the number of consecutive days above a custom temperature threshold, and it will calculate that for you and download the data. Okay, So I'll just go quickly through the rest of this. So the Learning Zone, this exists on our current site. I encourage you to check it out. It contains foundational knowledge on climate change and climate science, as well as practical guidance for applying climate data to real-world decisions. So if you're new to climate data, this is a really great place to start. There's lots of articles on things like understanding emission scenarios, using climate data in decision-making, understanding uncertainty in projections, and more. So this will continue to exist on the current site, but you're going to be able to find a lot of the content that's in those current sector modules embedded into the Learning Zone now, and there'll be a new filter system. So you'll be able to browse by topic, by sector, using that filtering ability. So the variables page, so again, this exists on the current site, just with a bit of a facelift on the new site, you'll see, and you'll also be able to use those filters to better find variables of interest to you. So if you work in agriculture, for example, you can filter by agriculture to see variables that will be relevant to the agricultural sector. And then finally, we have the news section. Again, this exists on the current site. It will just have a bit of a facelift. So you'll be able to browse the news articles, blog articles, a bit easier by using those filters. Okay, so this brings me to the end. I just wanted to mention, again, this will be launching soon, but I do encourage you to check out the current climatedata.ca site. I'll be around. My colleague Elaine is around. Sorry, Elaine. We can help answer your questions, walk you through the current site, chat about the new site. I did just want to highlight, though, if you are working with climate data and you have questions, you can reach out to us. So there's a web form on the current site. You can also connect with us directly at the email that's on the slide here. We're happy to help. So whether you're, really just getting started and you don't know where to start, if you have questions about specific data sets or variables, we're happy to help. So please reach out to us. All right. Thanks.
Okay, so my name, as Liz said, thanks for letting me present at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the last day of the conference. I will try to be loud, obnoxious, and keep you awake and more interactive. My name is Sherry Young. I am the project director for Climate Insight, which is really, apparently it's moving faster than I am, which is sponsored by Housing Infrastructure Canada. It's part of it's one pillar in a three-part toolkit that is aimed at municipalities and communities that maybe don't have a climate specialist in-house, but know they need to integrate climate considerations into their decision-making capacity, right? So if you are a building supervisor, maybe you're a parks manager, maybe you do a little bit of everything, because we do that in smaller municipalities, and you need to integrate climate into that, but that's not your specialty, and you just need to apply for a grant and need some climate information. That's kind of what the inspiration for the climate toolkit is. So the three parts of the toolkit are Climate Insight, which I'm going to take you through a demo, a really quick and fast demo. So I hope you've had your coffee. The other two pieces are the expert roster, which is aimed at communities under 30,000 people to provide expert advice. So once you've gone through what I show you, super fast, and get some ideas for your project, your infrastructure project, you can get matched with an expert from the expert roster who will provide free expert advice on how to integrate resiliency and climate solutions into your project. So you take your list of stuff you get from Climate Insight, call them and say, hey, I'm looking to integrate equity issues. I'm looking to integrate some resilience project into my water treatment plant, into my ditches, into my whatever it is. And they will help you build something for that. And then the third pillar in that is the climate help desk. And that is people sitting around waiting for you to ask them questions on climate and infrastructure. That they are on their phones, they're on the internet, they will look into something for you, they'll find you information on resources, funding programs, whether you're from an Indigenous community in Northern Saskatchewan or from a small community in Newfoundland where the mayor doesn't believe in climate change. I've met those people all over. That is what Climate Help Desk is supposed to help. It will help you find resources to support that. I know no one here is in Newfoundland, that's why I can say it like that. Okay, so that's my very fast precursor, but what I'm going to do now is just take you actually through what our tool is. So let me switch. Where is the right screen? Everybody can see. This is climateinsight.ca. Perfect. And what it is you go, unless you want to say it in French, and it's perspectiveclimatique.ca. We did the whole thing in both languages. And I am based out of Calgary, on Treaty 7 territory, Mohkinstsis, but we do work all over Turtle Island. And my and fun tip about me, I'm the only bilingual on the team, so I cover the prairies and Quebec for my for where I get to go and present. So Climate Insight is a three-part toolkit, kind of. I'm going to show you the very fancy place to start, which is the map. So we talked a lot. I saw a lot of tools presented today, and there's some amazing work being done. And a lot of those tools are actually featured on Climate Insight. So if you see something that looks kind of familiar, it's probably because we talked to them and we're like, that's a great tool. It has more detail than we have. Somebody should look at that. So this is where you start. Three-part toolkit. When you click on Explore Maps, it takes you to the map itself. Now I've zoomed in here on Saskatoon to try to make my presentation a bit faster. And what I've done is on this map, this cloud up here, this shows you your climate and socioeconomic layers. So what this map does, it pulls data from climatedata.ca, which all of you are familiar with because you've heard of that. I've heard them a couple of times. We've imported some climate proxies from climatedata.ca, including days with maximum temperature, more than 30 degrees, hottest day, maximum number of consecutive dry days, specific parameters that we're pulling across that we know are important and influence the major hazards. And across the prairies, that heat is really coming in. Heat and drought are really a big issue over here. So when you look at these layers, as you can see, we have per Elaine's comment or presentation yesterday, we have three different timeline or time scenarios that we're looking at, right? The baseline, which is that 30-year period that we're using, that Elaine got into yesterday. And then we do mid-century and we do projected to end of century. So you can see from just choosing the standalone temperature layer that, there's not gonna be a whole lot of heat days here in Saskatoon. The regular heat days for the baseline is about 12 days, or I think, right? 12 days. But when you move to mid-century, you can see it's a lot darker. Now, if we overlap that with a social vulnerability layer, which is really the key piece, because we talked about healthy planned city earlier today, which we also feature, and it goes down to a neighborhood level. But at ours, we go by dissemination level. So you can just have a quick snapshot of what's going on in your area. You can focus on those areas in the darker color where the heat is going to impact people who are already experiencing social vulnerability layers or social vulnerability pressures and vulnerabilities. So Genevieve's talk about how they picked where to put the splash parks. This is a great tool to kind of give you a snapshot of maybe heat's going to impact people in this areas. I usually use public transit because people tend to use more if they have mobility restrictions, if they're elderly, if they have lower costs or can't afford to drive a car, things like that. Taking 7 kids on the bus is fun. I've done it, but you can do it. That's where we're kind of focusing, and you can kind of focus on the area where you want to concentrate on, or if you want to pick where to put a splash park, right? So you kind of would look at these areas where the heat is going to impact people with social pressures already. You can look at this for flooding risks as well if you want to look at precipitation or ice days or freeze-thaw days if you're worried about the changing fluctuation on your freeze-thaw and your frost heave on your pathways. I know it's a huge problem in Calgary with when we get our Chinooks coming in, the freeze-thaw is crazy and it's going up. So you can get a snapshot of where you want to maybe focus your efforts. Here we have pulled in infrastructure layers as well. So if your municipality or even your province have submitted infrastructure information to StatsCan and it exists in one of your open databases of infrastructure, then you can see per Saskatoon that this is where your healthcare facilities are. This is where your recreation sports facilities are. Similar to Healthy Plan, Healthy City work but we focus directly on infrastructure itself. So if you want more details, the solid waste one is not showing up right now. If you want more details on where on the exact neighborhood at the neighborhood level, you can go there, but this will give you a quick overview snapshot. So now you want to look at a building that's maybe a healthcare facility that's subject to heat. Then we pop over to, you can scroll up to the solutions finder. So you say, what do I do with this information? I know now I have some people that are vulnerable or some areas and infrastructure that's vulnerable. You can pop over to the solutions finder, and the solutions finder is a guided series of questions that will help you get to a place where you get a list of solutions for your infrastructure project. So what's the population of Saskatoon? 225, this one? All right, we're gonna just do that for now. If we wanna learn more about the different things that are impacting our projects, I can show you that really quickly, but right now I'm gonna show you real quick how to get through a bunch of these questions. You can pop through here and then I'm gonna skip over the questions. But we're gonna do adaptation right now, blah, 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 hop, skip, and a jump. It's like a cooking show, right? I'm gonna skip to the final product, which is a list of solutions that apply to your transportation infrastructure that may apply to transit or things like that. Then you have this list, you can dig into that. It gives you equity issues, infrastructure issues, what it's applying for, and you can take this list to your engineering department or to the expert roster or to your planning people and say, okay, how can we integrate these into our projects? That's the major two tools and features of Climate Insight. I totally encourage you to take it back to your municipalities, dig through it. Call me if you want to walk through. We have some walkthroughs on the website itself. There's some training things. Come to LCF, our Livable Cities Forum, for Release 3 in October. We're going to kick off and bring on an equity or energy poverty layer onto our map and all sorts of other tools that are on there. Or come see me after if you don't want to rush home. I can walk you through your own community. So that's it. That's all I've got. The platform speaks for itself. Please check it out. It's a 5-year iterative process. So if there's something you hate, send me an email. If there's something you're like, this would be really cool if we included, I would really like this functionality, send me an email because we can maybe find a way to integrate that. And if you have a tool or a case study that applies to the hazards and the vulnerability factors and the things that we're featuring on this site, email it to me. Or if you'd like us to write it up for you, we'd like to feature unique case studies. I've approached a couple people today. We'd like to make sure that everybody, other communities that are working on infrastructure and climate can see what they can do and see who else is working on that. Thank you.